Hello and welcome to World Youth Day Central for Friday, July 29th. Today, Pope Francis visited the World War II Nazi death camps Auschwitz and Birkenau. At the Pope's request, it was a mostly silent visit. He met survivors of the camps, as well as a group of people considered righteous among the nations for their efforts to save innocent lives. Catholic News Service has this look at the Pope's visit to Auschwitz. In the afternoon, the Pope visited a children's hospital, speaking to patients and their families before making his way to Buonia Park for the Way of the Cross. Each station corresponded to a different work of mercy. As well, each station was presented by a different organization involved in that work of mercy. The stations were brought to life through dance, theater, and music, and the corresponding gospel passages were read by young people. In his homily, Pope Francis said the way of the cross is not a masochistic thing, it is a way of self-giving that we are called to embark on. He related the stations to the corporal and spiritual works of mercy and situations where those are needed today. He said, after Jesus' crucifixion, some disciples walked away sad, while others walked off to their country home to try to forget the cross. Pope Francis asked World Youth Day participants, "How will you return to your homes tonight?" He asked if the pilgrims would let themselves be touched by the stations and welcome the invitation they offer, or be indifferent. Now, Krakow is often referred to as the City of Mercy and the City of Saints. Despite the hardships faced by the people of Poland and Krakow, shining examples of mercy came from Krakow from all walks of life. Sebastian visited one place important to Krakow's history of mercy, the Schindler factory.
When we think about the Holocaust, the deliberate attempt by Nazi Germans to exterminate the Jewish people during the Second World War, we think of the inexplicable evil that human beings are capable of. But even in the face of such evil, stories of profound heroism and humanity emerged, and one of them is here, at the factory of Oskar Schindler in Krakow, Poland. Prior to the invasion of Poland by the Germans in 1939, 80,000 Jews lived peacefully in Krakow. Only 6,000 survived the war. Many of them thanks to Oskar Schindler, an industrialist and member of the Nazi Party. Schindler took over an enamelware factory in 1939 and accumulated considerable wealth through cheap labor from deprived Poles and Jews. Europe was in turmoil, and in Poland the Nazis were devising their final solution. They forcefully evicted Krakow's Jews from their homes and moved them into a ghetto, as construction of Auschwitz and Płaszów began. The horrifying truth of the Nazi plan became apparent when the Krakow ghetto was liquidated in 1943, and Schindler's focus shifted from making money to saving innocent lives. Oskar Schindler was not particularly religious. He was an entrepreneur who did his best in a time of great economic uncertainty. But at some point, the silent cry of the Polish Jews pierced his soul, and he had to do something. So he sat here in his office and devised a plan to save as many of them as possible. He employed hundreds. He bribed local SS officials to keep his workers from being transferred to concentration camps. He put himself and his wife Emily at great risk, since the Nazis would issue the death penalty for anyone in Poland caught helping or hiding Jews. By 1945, he had spent his entire fortune on his new mission to save lives. What was it in Oskar Schindler that drove his moral compass? What moved him to sacrifice for the sake of another people? Faced with terrible evil and injustice, Schindler came to see what we often forget: the deep solidarity that exists between all members of the human family. And for that, he is remembered by the sacred title, Righteous Among the Nations.
From visiting places like these that are concrete examples of mercy in action, to learning about mercy from the catechists on hand, there are many options at World Youth Day. Now, yesterday, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle gave a catechesis talk to English-speaking pilgrims. Our team caught up with him to talk about his catechesis session and much more. Okay, well, we're here backstage with our good friend Cardinal Tagle from Manila in the Philippines. You're here obviously at the Mercy Center to do catechesis, to be with a lot of the English-speaking pilgrims who are here at World Youth Day in Krakow. Now, tell me, first of all, what's the heart of your message? What would you like to speak about and tell the youth today?
The theme of the catechesis today is open your hearts to God's mercy. So my main message is do not be afraid to admit that we are lost, we are weak, that we need to be picked up, that we need to be embraced. There's nothing wrong with that, for we cannot do it to ourselves. In spite of what the world says, that you could be a self-made individual, that's not true. That's not true.
Now, an event like this obviously brings a lot of people together from all around the world. we look at the world today, there's a lot of crazy things that are happening. Yes. There's a lot of violence, even by the day. There's new horrific stories that are emerging. When you see a group of young people like this coming together, how does that make you feel about the church? What statement do you think that makes to the world?
First of all, my heart bleeds for them, because these are the children, the young people who will inherit a world that my generation has produced. And so I feel a deep sense of guilt, remorse, but also a desire to do what I can for these young people. They deserve better. But at the same time, seeing them, I'm filled with hope. I know that there is no evil so great that it could dampen the spirit of the young. That's the grace of being young. Yeah, strength, energy, idealism, even a sense of sometimes reckless adventurism.
As the Pope often says that, right? I mean, go make a mess, be noisy.
Yes, and I know that with God's mercy, these young people will survive.
Very good. And you're also here in a somewhat official capacity, because you're the head of Caritas Internationalis, which is the charity development division of the Catholic Church internationally. Obviously a huge organization that does very, very good work. You've had some events here for Caritas at World Youth Day. Tell me about the young people who are involved in Caritas and what message they're bringing to the World Youth Day.
It is really a pleasant surprise for me to know that there are a lot of young people doing volunteer work for Caritas in different parts of the world. And Caritas Internationalis took advantage of the World Youth Day to gather some of them. And so yesterday, we had a good number from different parts of the world doing volunteer work for their respective Caritas organization, and also some of them having decided already to work full-time for Caritas. But what touched me yesterday was the testimonies of young people from Senegal, from El Salvador, from Venezuela, from Canada, from Luxembourg, and from CAFAD, from England, from Lebanon, from New Zealand, from Australia. Young people who have seen so much suffering, but whose response was not despair or anger, but let us do something. Let us share the love of God. And I'm very much edified. I thought I would come to the event to strengthen them, but I was the one strengthened by them.
Now, you also share something in common with the organizers of World Youth Day Krakow, and that is that you've actually hosted a papal visit.
Yes,
You've hosted Pope Francis when he came to the Philippines, I think in January 2015.
15, yes.
So first of all, tell us a little bit about that experience. What's it like to host the Holy Father when he comes? What did you see in Manila? And maybe what advice would you offer to the people who are hosting Pope Francis here?
There are many levels in the papal pastoral visit, and the preparations are just a nightmare. Security, housing, logistics, etc. All of them. But when the moment comes, the event is just an explosion of grace, really. And there you believe once again in the promise of Christ, that this humble person, Peter, could really be rock. But it is Jesus who constructs his church, using this rock who often becomes sand. But the Lord will pick him up, make him rock, and through this humble person, the Lord will make his church stand firm. It may be a Francis, it may be a Benedict, John Paul, but it is Peter. And I've witnessed that. in the many papal trips that I have participated in. And I'm sure I will still be touched the same way.
Cardinal Tagle, thank you very much for speaking with us, and enjoy your time here at World Youth Day. It's wonderful to see you again.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you.
Of course, there's also quite a lot of fun going on in Krakow. There's a whole youth festival showcasing the various artistic talents of young people from around the world. Our team caught up with some of the Canadian participants.
How did you get chosen to be a part of this festival?
I was on Twitter and there was an advertisement, do you like to dance, do you like to perform? My friend linked it to me as well for the youth festival, so we just applied, yeah.
And what was your reaction when you got the news that you were going to be performing?
Well, we were really surprised. I think, how many applicants were there?
There were close to 400 applications from 60 countries.
What was it like for you to be up there today?
I don't know, it was very, yes, both peaceful and exciting at the same time. It's a blessing to really represent our country. I believe there aren't a lot of Canadian teams representing, so it was just a real honor. And it's kind of surreal, right? You're just in Poland representing your country. Yeah.
And for World Youth Day, like, what is it like to be doing this for World Youth Day? Like, what is the significance for you to be here this week?
I think it's a very humbling experience. I think the both of us are still trying to wrap around why God allowed us to have this experience. We really felt like from the beginning, from preparation to here, that He had His hand on the whole thing. And we started off with a totally different routine in terms of the songs, and it changed, and it ended up being really good. And so to be here was like an expression of our gratitude to God and how He's touched our lives, and to be able to use our talents to show it and share it, because I know that the people watching here know exactly what we're talking about.
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Now, for those looking for a different sort of cultural entertainment, the Krakow Museum has a special exhibit going on this week for World Youth Day pilgrims.
The idea of this exhibition came from Denver, because from the first time during the World Youth Day in Denver, Vatican decided to show the masterpieces from Vatican Museum. So it's kind of tradition. At this moment we have the Year of the Mercy, so we decided together with the Foundation for the Youth to show over 90 masterpieces from Italy and also from the Northern Europe. We also decided to show some masterpieces from Polish art collections, but not only art collections, but also from the churches, from cloisters. We tried to show as much as possible everything which is connected with Mary, Mother of Mercy. The iconography of Mary is so creative that we have so many types of iconography. I think that it's also a good reason to show all them in the one exhibition. Mostly they came from Renaissance and from the Baroque, some mainly from the 15th or 16th century, and also with some pieces from 18th century. First of all, Donatello, Mother with a Child, the sculpture of Donatello. It's unbelievable because we see true Mother and with a special face. I'm not able to describe it. You have to see it by yourself. And the second one is a sculpture of Franciszek Oleński. It is Polish sculpture. It is from the 18th century. And this is, I can describe it as a dancing Mary. It's a sculpture with a big history because it came from the Church of Ukraine of Ukraine after the Second World War moved to the present territory of Poland. You can read the comments in the guest book. They are moved, really moved. They are touched, I can even say, because it's really unbelievable how many various and many wonderful images of Saint Mary was created.
The World Youth Day, which was started by Saint Pope John Paul II, is really a festival of faith. It is a recognition that the young people, as young people, are graced with enthusiasm, with energy, and how can we bring all of that to the faith?
The Night of Mercy was really great. The procession was really beautiful. I love to see it whenever people are on fire about our Lord.
Super excited to see Pope Francis, and it was just a huge blessing.
To start a Pope, and you feel the faith in your heart. And that makes you feel really, really happy. Our Pope tells us about the charity. Charity for us, for Night of Columbus, it's a basic thing.
Finalmente ci incontriamo. Vorrei ringraziare specialmente San Giovanni Paolo II. Ma forte! Chiediamo al Signore, lanciasi nell'avventura della misericordia.
And that's all for World Youth Day Central. We leave you tonight with Father Rosica's memory of the Way of the Cross from World Youth Day Toronto. From everyone here, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.
For me, the Stations of the Cross in Toronto has a very special significance, not just because of the size, the dimensions, the location, the venue, the crowds and everything else, but it was the one moment of our World Youth Day where I really wanted to be part of a devotional, liturgical exercise, because I couldn't do much. I didn't even receive communion at the final Mass because of the storm and everything. But that Friday night remains in my mind, and there's a couple real personal things about it. I asked the Chief of Police, who was really wonderful in working with us, Chief Fantino, I said, look, tonight, I don't want to just be one of the ones running this. I want to be part of it. So I said, so take my beeper, take my machines. I took all the earpieces out. I literally unplugged myself so I can walk in that. And as we walked up University Avenue, it was an extraordinary moment. There were over 600,000 people, and we timed it right, and we positioned it right to pass the hospitals. The hospital for cancer, the hospital for children. They had all these sick children out there on the lawn in wheelchairs. When we got towards Mount Sinai Hospital, the chief came up to me, the chief of police, and said, look, there are two groups that are protesting. On one side, you had a whole group of pro-choice people, and on the other side, you had all these Catholic groups that were cheering and everything else. What should we do? I said, nothing. Jesus had to walk in the midst of this also. And thank God the CBC never really picked up on those things. They picked up on the faces and the devotion and the beauty of the whole thing. And as we continued to walk, we walked past the American consulate as well. And that was very significant in light of what had just happened months before with September the 11th. So we had a special prayer. And as we neared the Parliament, the crucifixion of Jesus took place on the steps of the Ontario legislature and the Ontario Parliament. It was an incredible scene. Jesus there on the cross. We all fell to our knees. it was extraordinary. There was dead silence. But the moment I remember very well is when they took the body of Jesus down from the cross and they wrapped it in this long red cloth, a silk cloth, extremely long, and we carried the body around the arch, through the arch, over to Queen's Park. And it was then, like I just felt chills, because the brothers of Taizé, the Taizé community, was on the hill in the middle of the park, and they were singing Adoramus Te Domine. For me, it stuck with me all of these years, and many, many people have spoken to me about it. Mayor Lastman and I had become friends, so he called me 1 year later and said, I need you. He would say, I want my priest. So I said, what do you need me for? He says, I need you to come to the Sheraton Hotel in Scarborough. We're having a press conference, and I'm going to announce that I no longer wish to seek political office. So I said, what do you want me there for? He said, I need you. My wife and I need you. So I got to the hotel, was taken up through the back kitchens, up until this big, huge ballroom, tons of cameras and everything else. And he has his priest on one side and his rabbi on the other side. So there we are standing. It was a very emotional moment. So he announces, because of a health condition, he will no longer seek political office. So the question comes from the crowd, what was the highlight of your 43 years of political life? And without batting an eyelash or flinching for a moment, he said, the highlight was last summer on July 26th on Friday night during the Jesus Parade. He never quite got the Stations of the Cross right, because that was the night that God claimed Toronto for his own. You know, and I said to myself, none of us invented that expression. No one of us from the church ever dare say that expression. We had an outsider talk about one of the most profound moments of the World Youth Day. And whenever I walk up University Avenue now, almost 14 years later, those words go through my mind. And I can still picture the stations, I can picture the actors, I can see the Parliament and the crucifixion, and I can hear the brothers of Taizé singing Adoramus Te Domine.